Hamel, the angel that cried out for humanity. A Bible mystery story. In the archives of the celestial realms, far beyond the familiar names of Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael, there exists a lesser-known being whose story is whispered only in the dim corridors of eternity, where angels rarely walk and where the echoes of forgotten wars linger like dust on ancient stone. His name was Hamel, a watcher of watchers, a keeper of the silent scrolls, an angel whose wings bore the faint scent of incense burned in ages long before Eden breathed its first dawn. His existence was not one of trumpet-blaring glory or battlefield triumphs. He was a contemplative being, gentle-voiced, piercing-eyed, a vessel of emotion in a world where emotion itself was a paradox. The other angels often said that Hamel felt too deeply for a being made of light, while seraphs blazed like suns, burning with obedience, and archangels moved like storms, fulfilling divine decree. Hamel lingered in the spaces between command and compassion. He was assigned to no choir and no legion, only to the observatory of threads, a silent tower suspended in the ether, where he watched the rise and fall of human destinies like strands woven into an ever-changing tapestry. It was said that from that vantage point, Hamel could hear the heartbeat of the world. Hamel remembered every cry of every child born into suffering, every gasp from the oppressed, every whispered prayer from souls who had no language except tears. He remembered them because he could not forget them, and he could not forget them because he was the angel who felt them. And though angels do not weep, Hamel had come closest to breaking that rule. When Adam fell, Hamel felt the wound of humanity like a tremor across his wings. When Cain lifted his hand against Abel, Hamel felt the fracture of brotherhood like a cold wind cutting through the heavens. And when the flood swallowed the earth, Hamel's voice trembled with a question he dared not speak. How much more can they bear? But it was not until the deep centuries after the prophets stopped speaking that Hamel's story entered its most dangerous moment, a moment so forbidden that even angels feared to mention it in the centuries that followed. It began with a sound in the heavens, soft at first, like a harp string loosening. Hamel stood at the observatory, gazing into the mortal realm below, and saw a shadow creeping across it, not the shadow of a demon, nor the trembling of war, but the slow, suffocating dimness of despair spreading across human hearts. Kingdoms were rising and collapsing. Justice had become a rare flower trampled under iron boots, and human cries were no longer sporadic but continuous, layering upon one another until they created a kind of spiritual smoke that reached even the highest courts of paradise. Hamel could not look away. He descended to the lower veil of heaven, where archangels often met to discuss the affairs of creation. There, under a vault of golden storms, he found Michael, the great commander, standing alone with a sword resting against his shoulder like a silent bolt of lightning. Michael sensed him before he arrived. "You are troubled, Hamel." Michael's voice carried the weight of battlefields long conquered. Hamel bowed but did not hide his unrest. "The world cries louder than ever, my lord. Their suffering trembles through the tapestry. It grows, daily." Michael's eyes did not waver. "It is known, yet the Almighty allows seasons of testing." "But must every season break them?" Hamel whispered. "Their hope thins, their voices dim. How much more must their souls endure before relief comes?" Michael turned, truly looking at him. "Be cautious. Asking why is dangerous. Asking how much more. Even more so." Hamel lowered his gaze, but something inside him, some trembling compassion, resisted the warning. He returned to the observatory, but he could no longer watch passively. Night after night, he hovered over the tapestry of human history, listening to mothers losing children, men crushed under injustice, widows weeping in the dark. And one night, when the cries aligned into a chord so overwhelming it vibrated the structure of the tower itself, Hamel did something no angel had done since the dawn of creation. He cried out, not softly, not in private, but into the heavens, into the throne room, into eternity. "O Sovereign One," Hamel shouted, his voice shaking the pillars of the tower. "Hear them. Humanity bends beneath unbearable burdens. How long must they bleed before mercy rains upon them? How long must the innocent groan unheard? How long, O Lord?" The silence that followed was terrifying. The winds of heaven stilled. The stars dimmed. Even the seraphim hesitated in their circling around the throne, their chanting faltering like torches in a sudden gust. No one had ever cried out like that. Not an archangel, not a cherub, not even one of the fiery six-winged beings. The heavens were not built for rebellion, and yet Hamel had not rebelled. He had pleaded, but pleading too could be dangerous. The next instant, Hamel felt himself swept into a current of invisible force. The observatory vanished. The corridors of heaven blurred. He was being summoned. When the motion stopped, Hamel found himself standing before the veil of glory, the shimmering boundary that concealed the fullness of the Almighty from all created eyes. The air hummed with ancient power. The ground beneath him shone like living glass, shifting with colors not found in mortal creation. Hamel trembled, but he stood firm. The voice came, not thunderous, not soft, but like all waters flowing at once, filling all space. Hamel! His name vibrated through his being. Why do you cry out? Hamel fell to his knees, wings lowered. For them, he said, barely able to breathe beneath the weight of the presence. For humanity, your creation, your children. They perish in sorrow. They wander in darkness. I cannot bear their cries anymore. The veil pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. And do you believe, the voice asked, that I do not see them? No, my lord, Hamel whispered. You see all things, but perhaps their cries rise to you slower than their suffering tears them apart. Perhaps they need a witness. Perhaps they need an advocate. The heavens were silent again. Then the voice said something that would become the hinge of Hamel's destiny. Compassion is the greatest of lights, Hamel, but light must not burn the one who carries it. Before Hamel could respond, a force of warmth enveloped him, gentle yet overwhelming, and he saw visions of ages past, present, and yet to come. He saw wars cease. He saw children lifted from misery. He saw the hopeless restored. He saw the Redeemer walking the earth in flesh. He saw a cross raised on a hill. He saw a tomb emptying. He saw mercy flowing through centuries like a river. And then it was gone. Hamel collapsed, gasping. When he opened his eyes again, he was not punished. He was not cast out. He was not rebuked. Instead, something new shimmered across his wings. Lines of gold, thin as threads, glowing like dawn. Michael appeared beside him. You spoke boldly, Michael said quietly. I meant no offense to the Almighty, Hamel answered. I know, and he knows. Michael looked at the golden lines on Hamel's wings. Those marks are rare. Only angels who have carried unbearable burdens receive them. What do they mean? They mean you have been entrusted with something delicate. Hamel rose slowly. What is that? Michael looked directly into him. A mission. And so Hamel descended to the earth, not in glory but in subtlety, walking through ages unseen. He became the whisper of hope in prisons, the breath of comfort in famine, the unseen hand lifting the head of those bowed in despair. He walked through plagues, wars, and broken empires, carrying compassion like a torch that burned but did not consume him. When the Redeemer came, Hamel stood in silent awe at Bethlehem, unseen by shepherds. He watched Jesus walk, teach, heal, bleed, and rise. He was there when mercy was poured like wine upon the earth, fulfilling the vision he saw before the veil. It was then Hamel realized that his cry had not been a challenge to heaven. It had been an echo of heaven's own heart. And even now, in the folds of modern time, when humanity trembles under new burdens, when the poor groan under systems they did not build, when the weary cry into the night with no one to hear, Hamel still moves among them. He is unseen in hospital corridors, present in refugee camps, lingering in courtrooms where justice teeters on a knife's edge. He still bears the golden lines on his wings, glowing brighter each time compassion is shown, dimming when cruelty rises. Some say that when a person sits alone in sorrow and suddenly feels strength where none existed before, Hamel has passed nearby. Others say that when someone nearly gives up but hears a whisper, "Hold on," it is his voice. And some insist that when humanity's collective suffering becomes too great, a single tear-shaped streak of light crosses the sky, though no star has fallen. That, they say, is Hamel's silent cry. One last reminder to heaven that the world still needs mercy. But only a few in heaven know the deeper truth. Hamel is no longer just the angel who cried out for humanity. He is the angel whose compassion shook the heavens, whose voice reached the veil, and whose plea awakened a revelation in eternity. That the Creator's greatest desire was not judgment, not power, not dominion, but love too deep for even angels to understand. And so Hamel's story continues, not in scrolls or in the records of choirs, but in the hidden folds of human experience, where suffering still meets unseen comfort, and where the echoes of a forbidden angelic cry still ripple softly, warming the cold places of the world. For somewhere beyond the veil of sight, Hamel still watches, carries, and feels,